Uh, okay, so my camera broke. Did my camera break? My camera's broken. Why did my camera break? What we're gonna do is this. I can turn it on. Is this working correctly? Okay. I reinstalled Windows and I had to reinstall all my software and make sure everything was configured correctly. Luckily, everything was saved properly. It only took me 6 hours to get my audio software working again because apparently there was an issue with the buffers. It wasn't really an issue with the buffers as it was with the read write speeds. But now my camera's missing. Even though it's right here. Camera, webcam. It's selected. Deactivate. Okay. Activate. Didn't work. Figure crossbar, video. FPS video format. Custom. Any. Oh, does this need to be set? Custom. Is that what they were looking for? No? 1920 1080 any. Default color space. Your crossbar. Okay, what if we do this? Add, cancel, add video capture device. Webcam 2. Oh, wait. Oh, it's just off screen? I noticed this one's like way the fuck up here. What if we did this? Add. Fuck. How do we move it? Properties. Filters. Transform. Center to screen. Why is it all the way up here? What we're gonna do is we're gonna delete this. This is broken. Delete. Move webcam. Okay, so we gotta come over here in order to access this. Center scene. Webcam. Center scene. Right scene. We gotta drag it over here. Right scene webcam. Delete. Add. Video capture device. Video capture device. Bruh, there we go. Now we gotta add in the green screen information again. God damn it. Oh, maybe we can undo that. And we can copy the filter information. Fuck. Tools. Advanced scene switcher. Stop. Yeah, well, for now, because I figure I'm troubleshooting, my webcam disappeared. I have to figure out what happened to my webcam. You see, it's on, but it's not on. So, filters, we're gonna leave this one for the filters, okay? We're gonna add a new webcam on left scene. A raw display. Okay, so video capture device, webcam. Okay, it's working. Deactivate when not showing. What the fuck? Flip vertically, flip horizontally. What do you mean, flip vertically? What? Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take that, we're gonna flip it like that. There we go. That's easier to work with. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to here. We're gonna copy filters. Filters? Copy filters? Copy? Can we not? Filters. I thought there was a way to copy these. Copy all of them, I mean, not just one. 2, 3, 2, 3. Fuck it. We'll do this. Filters. Oh, we can only open one at a time? We have to do them one at a time. Copy. Left scene. Filters. Paste. We're going to pull up the other two. Filters. Copy. Left scene. Filters. Paste. These ones are turned off for right now, but I still need them for other times of the day. Raw displays. Filters. Copy. Left scene. Filters. Paste. Okay, so now what we can do is we can just create a copy of this camera. Webcam. Copy, and we can paste a duplicate on the other scenes. Paste reference, rather. Fuck. How do we do this? Under text encounter. Down. God damn it. You dumb. Damn it. How do we fucking... New idea. We're gonna click and drag this instead. There we go. Right scene. Paste. Reference. God damn. Holy shit, that was hard. Okay. We're all done. Save. It's saved. Center scene. Okay. Why are the text encounters fucking everywhere? Counter. That's fine. Counter label. Fucking move that counter. Some of this stuff got shifted around, I guess. Testing. I'm gonna delete that. Paste. Reference. Okay. I see. Okay. I'm just not going to the right line. Man. Not much. How you doing? Sorry, yeah, I reinstalled Windows yesterday, and it took a lot longer than I thought it would. So, yeah, sorry I missed yesterday. How you doing? Do I want a 9-stone game? Sure. We're not doing a review today. I'm just trying to play for fun right now. I'm kind of, my brain is shot. So as long as it's chill. Wait, one sec. Can you type something one more time? I'm trying to find out because my camera wasn't working. I'm wondering if some of my overlays aren't working. Like, is my chat overlay working? I didn't hear that timer end. Like, I gotta double check everything now. Yeah, send me an ad. See, did it show up? I didn't see it show up. Huh, okay, we're gonna test that out. Pixel chat. Oh, it did show up. I'm not hearing the timer on time's up. Time's up audio. Are you hearing that? Because I'm not hearing that. Audio properties. I deleted OBS media thinking it was not being used. Create an audio input capture. OBS media. No. It's not it. Remove. OBS browser sources not relaying audio. Aren't relaying audio. Check default playback device. Check monitor audio output device. Sound alerts browser source. Select the desired device and save. Delete, recreate browser source. Huh. Yeah, send me that game ad. 2, 1. Oh, okay. Why is it not monitored? You did. On KGS or OGS? I gotta reinstall KGS.
Challenge
here we are.
received.
Okay.
Game started. Advanced audio properties disappeared. Where did it go? Found it. So I'm tempted to make a contacts play here. Is that a bad idea? Why do I think it's a bad idea? I think if I go contact play, you're gonna go D15, and then you're gonna take corner. So instead, I'm gonna... Oh, wow. Okay, that was dumb. Man. Is ladder good? I don't think... Is ladder good? No, because you just connect right there. I don't think I can kill the pieces, but I think I'm establishing ground. Also a tiny little stream. So ladder's bad unless they're fully enclosed already, is what I'm learning. Okay. Ha! Things have gotten dangerous. Thanks for the follow. Welcome. We're normally a very studious channel, but today we're just gonna take it easy and lose a bunch of games with heavy handicaps. And hopefully learn something, but we're not gonna review today. We weren't out to do that. See, I was thinking these were alive, but now I realize in order to properly make them alive, I have to fill in one of the eyes, which makes them unalive. New, yes. Are you ranked? What are you ranked? Dudon? Nice to meet you. You're welcome. You're welcome here. Not like you're welcome like after a thank you. Like, yeah, you're welcome to hang around, provide any insights, or just chill, man. I am feeling this corner is lost. I've invested a lot, but I feel like it's better to just not fight it. This. Yeah. Big rip. Nothing I can do. Man.
Why am I building here? This is disconnected from everything. There's nothing I can do with this. Let's go here. Fuck, wall. Alright, empty triangle, but if you go there, I go there, and then we're connected, so I'm not worried. But I will lose wall. Man. God damn it. Fuck. Oh, it's the same as before where I have like a couple tiny pockets of, I think I have one pocket of not dead, and that's dead, and that's dead, and this can maybe not be dead. Damn it. Yeah. What's 100 Comey? Is that like the point? Is that just raw points? I just start with 100 raw points? I'm not really worried about the winning losing. I'm more worried about the developing like shapes appropriately. That's not what I'm worried about. I'd like to start over though, because the outcome's decided at this point. So I think the issue is I might need to work on endgame, but if I'm gonna lose before endgame, I think I need to just like resign and go back and figure out whatever it is I'm missing there. The issue is one thing at this level. Keeping your stones connected. I have not developed an intuition for when to sacrifice.
White wins.
And I think that comes off against me. I appreciate the variations. I'm not going to be looking at variations today. Yeah. Appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate it nonetheless. I don't want to sound... Yeah, I want that to be super clear. I appreciate all the variations that people give me. Go through and study. Just not today. Just don't sacrifice at all until 5K? Really? I feel like that's my mistake though, is I just don't be dead. Just buy a house. I feel like my mistake is I fight for all the stones and that ends up hurting me. I feel like it would be better to cut losses really early and develop elsewhere on the board instead. Is sort of the impression that I'm getting. But I just don't have an idea of when to cut those losses.
Challenge
Should've probably gone
received.
there. Oh, let's go here. Yeah. Let's make move.
Game started.
All right, let's do this. The first problem in the list of problems you're dealing with that we have seen even now is unwillingness to count liberties. Liberties of your stone. Otherwise. Yeah. Counting is hard, man. I've done some 9x9s to try to force fights to learn fights, but it doesn't develop, like, stripped of context. Even like it strips context one, but even stripped of context, like the fights are completely different. So I don't really think it applies on a 19x19. And I haven't done 13x13 for pretty much. I anticipate that being more or less the same, only a little bit less extreme. Maybe it was a little bit more transferable, but I think it's probably the same on the whole. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to learn. I mean, yeah. What matters here? The uppermost choice, a stone clicker volume setting. Oh, that's handy. Are you guys hearing a baby crying? What am I hearing? I think I'm haunted. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dude, at a distance, kids screaming sound like my cat whining. Kinda wild. I'm just gonna confirm. This is alive as long as these two are alive. This one's alive as long as these two are alive. And this one's alive as long as these two are alive. So we're good. I can close in this hole. It's only worth a point. So I'm not gonna do that. Hey Chad. How you doing? I have a hard time reading if this is alive or dead. I think I can potentially create a killing shape, but you can connect out. And these don't have eyes. These don't have eyes. They're not getting out anywhere. That's dead. These have space, but they're not alive yet. Prevent formation of eye. This doesn't have an eye yet. It can connect out too. Can I connect anywhere? Big questions. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't think so. I think I lost this middle piece. So this is one of those times where I wouldn't count my liberties, because that's 1, 2, and he's probably going to go there if I go here. So if I go here, he goes there. That's connected. 1, 2, 3. It would get killed. But wait. Here. 1, 2. So I would go here. He would go here. I would go here. He would go here. Then it would be connected again. Yep. Okay. This piece is not alive yet. This top left is fully alive. I'm tempted to place S14, but I don't think that. I think I'd just be giving you a point. So it's not able to connect and it's not able to create life. And it can't really threaten this piece. I go here, you go here. Done. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that one, but I was thinking about continuing the co-fight, because what if I get rid of this whole piece? What do you mean not counting my liberties? R7 is incorrect. Takes away a point. T6? Oh. You're right. I'm gonna be honest. I know there's different rule sets. I still don't know the difference between the rule sets. I just know what I've been playing. Is that GG? Is that game over? Chinese doesn't punish beginners. Oh, is Chinese where your stones count as well? Your stones count as well as the empty spaces? Huh. Okay. Wait, how do we see the living and dead pieces? I don't actually know. Is there a way to get an estimate? Because I'm not actually 100% confident. I can read this out. Yeah. White with 85 point. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go preheat the oven real quick. And then we can keep going. Okay. Right sidebar has the estimate score. Oh, that's what this is. Yawn, wow. Oh, that's the kind of display I was looking for. Okay. Do normal game. Pull up some Dr. Mario while we wait. Oh, what? That's not what I was looking for. Does it have audio? One player, two player? Ooh, let's go. Oh, shouldn't have gone there. Should have gone. I wanted to avoid a contact play. I didn't even need to do that. Whoops, that was a waste. That was a wasted move. Fix cuts, surround, then take eyes. Okay. Damn, didn't count. Play Stone's Panic, win game. One of those is closer to what I actually do, minus the win game. Minus the win game. Wait, he fucked up. And I was so fucked up that I didn't even think that I could have capitalized. Oh my god. I could have taken. And I didn't. I fucked up and then he fucked up. And then I fucked up again. Oh no. Oh no. Well, that piece is alive now. There's no way I can make that not alive. So, connect. Fight for that connection. This is already alive. We don't really have to fight for this. That was a wasted move. We could have just closed off that corner. So he controls all this space now. This is a weird position. I did what I was supposed to this time. I won corners and walls, but now I have no control over center, and he's got this whole chunk. Fuck am I supposed to do? God damn. God damn. Just walk in.
So I'm trying to go this way, if possible. You may not let me. Probably won't let me. Would make the most sense. Now we're gonna threaten here, and we're gonna build up towards center like that. Yeah. Empty triangle, not good. Pause. I'm thinking trade M10 to threaten. So fill in. He takes M10. No, we can't do that. I'm fucking up. Ugh. I'm trying to get rid of this piece right here. Stay connected. Trade. No. Maybe we can take this piece if he tries too hard to defend this piece. Stay connected. Well, when I stay alive, I lose on territory. That's my problem.
2 liberties. Three liberties. Is there something else with 2 liberties that I can threaten? I'm throwing them away, I know. I'm throwing away all the opportunities. Like there. Should have gone here. And I thought about that earlier too. And then when he did it, I forgot. That happened again. Yeah. Yeah, that fucked me. I go here, he goes here, and he's got 2 complete eyes. This piece is alive. Fuck. Is there any way to break this? How can we break this? He's gonna go here, I'm gonna go here. I don't think there's anything more. I fucked up a couple times. Could have done better. Okay. Oven just finished reheating, or maybe it's been done. I'm gonna go throw in some chicken because I haven't eaten yet. We'll queue up. It's gonna take me like a minute. I'll be right back. Oh. Let's go. Game over. It took that long. Set an alarm for 20 minutes. What? What? Whew. I don't think this guy's here. Yeah. Oh, that was instant. Is this a bad move here? Fuck it. Am I giving him the one line? Is that what's happening? I don't think these pieces are anywhere close to alive yet. He's just gonna give me the entire 2 line? I'll take it. I'll just take the entire fucking corner, dude. Thank you. Am I thinking right? Like, he just gave me the entire wall. Or is that useless? Was that bad for me? But he's not surrounding yet. As far as I'm concerned, these are alive. Right? Okay, now his is not dead. But that was a waste, was it? I really didn't need to do that. I could cut here and try to connect around. You gave up? Okay. As long as you don't die, it's probably an okay move. I think I have that. I tend to lose viewers when I just do Smego on stream, so I'm gonna probably not do that on stream. getting hungry, son of a... Capturing connect. 100 a day for 1 week. 100 a day. Oh, for free? They said 20 a day. What's going on here? What's with this display? What is this? Something to do while we wait. Unexpected surprise anomalies and space mysteries nobody can explain. Let's go. Vulcan was killed. Feels bad, man. Oh, that'd be cool. Let's get some documentaries here to watch, yeah?
It's been quite a while since we talked about the central black hole Sagittarius A-star. And in the
What
last
sound are
few
we
months or
hearing?
so, there's actually been a few major discoveries coming from the center of the galaxy, specifically focusing on that central black hole.
How do we turn off
and
language
confirming
reactor?
a few important features about the black hole, possibly helping us understand why it's the way it is and why it's so different from everything else. Because as you probably know, based on observations from other black holes,
Turn off for
Sagittarius
now?
A star
Fuck it.
is surprisingly quiet, surprisingly small, possibly even making Milky Way galaxy so
Ah, dude,
unique
this is because I
compared to
reinstalled
everything else.
Windows.
And so, hello
My
folks,
settings got
this is Anton. Let's talk about some of
deleted,
the
I
recent
guess.
discoveries about Sagittarius
Normally
A
it's
star
turned
once
off.
again, briefly discuss its history and how all of this was discovered, and of course talk about why this is somewhat important. But I guess first let's start with the image released a couple of years ago. You might have
Fall
already seen
asleep in the
this.
seat
This
with
was
the
the image
laptop on
released
your
by
lap
the
for like an
Event
hour.
Horizon Telescope after 5
That's
years of
okay.
analysis
Definitely
and after
relatable.
5 years of observations, and to some extent, this shows us the region around the black hole. And it's that dark region in the middle that's essentially where the black hole is probably hiding. But when it comes to the central black hole in the Milky Way, it's actually really surprising that we even managed to find it, because it is very well hidden. Hidden by a massive amount of gas in the center of the galaxy, and just by the fact that there are billions of different stars out there producing all sorts of emissions. But intriguingly, back in 1974, a couple of young astronomers, Bruce Ballack and Robert Brown, who you see right here, although obviously they don't actually look young here anymore, because this picture was taken 30 years later, were essentially conducting some of their first investigations in radio astronomy of various regions in the constellation of Sagittarius. They were actually looking at a star-forming region, Sagittarius B, but completely by accident and because they were curious, decided to also point their telescope at Sagittarius A. And to their surprise, they discovered an enormously bright radio object. So bright and so unusual that they basically just put
You
an
can only
asterisk
select one?
next to its name. And so it became known as Sagittarius A star. In this case, this was technically
How do we
a
turn it off?
completely accidental discovery. But back then, because this was still the beginning of radio astronomy, and also because they were still very young and still basically just starting, they didn't really want to, I guess, ruffle the feathers. They did not want to make any extraordinary claims, even though they kind of had a hunch on what this was, and they didn't even want to publish anything about it, because they didn't really know where all of this goes. And as they mentioned in one of their interviews, the decision
the
here was more
heck?
political, not really scientific. And it wasn't until the 1990s and additional observations in the infrared and submillimeter wavelengths that more and more evidence started to come out that there is something exceptionally concentrated right in the middle. Moreover, that something had a lot of stars around it, and many of them exhibited unusual orbital pattern. You can actually see some of it right here. And so by 1990s, the researchers started to collectively measure the motion of these stars, trying to figure out what's actually happening. And by roughly 2008 or so, they had about 20 years of observations, being able to plot the orbits of these so-called S stars, You can learn more about these stars in some of the videos in the description. The most famous one, the one that you see in the middle, is S2. It orbits every 16 years and comes as close to the center as 120 astronomical units away, basically a distance of approximately 4 times as far as Neptune is from the Sun. And as more observations were conducted, more of these stars started to be discovered, and some of them were actually extreme. One of them,
Oh, there we go.
714, once again a video in the description describes it more, comes within 12.6 astronomical units and moves at approximately 8% of the speed of light. And all of these observations meant only one thing: something very massive, something very compact, and invisible right in the center, which eventually resulted in several major papers with very strong claims that this is the central supermassive black hole, the claim and the studies that eventually resulted in a Nobel Prize in 2020. And so naturally, once we knew that this is a supermassive black hole, someone had to take a picture of it. I mean, obviously to confirm that it's there, but also to see what we can see. But for that, the scientists needed something a little bit bigger than any previous telescope. They actually needed a telescope possibly the size of planet Earth. And that idea was kicking around for quite a few years and eventually became known as the Event Horizon Telescope. A large array
K10.
of telescopes
Wow, I wasn't listening.
consisting of
Shit,
the
I forgot to
telescopes you
listen.
see right here,
I'm too busy
all
trying to figure out
collectively from the
why
same
this is
point
trying to
at the
teach
same
me
time,
English
which
when
is
I already
then
know
collected
English.
and analyzed in order to reconstruct a single image, which is pretty much exactly how this was created, and later on resulted in the image of Sagittarius A star. It's been quite a while since we've talked about these
1 sec. Sagittarius A star? Where were we? Over here?
a black hole, and it's that dark region in the middle that's the center. First, let's start with the image released a couple of years ago. You might have already seen this. This was the image released by the Event Horizon Telescope after 5 years of analysis and after 5 years of observations, and to some extent, this shows us the region around the black hole. And it's that dark region in the middle that's essentially where the black hole is probably hiding. But when it comes to the central black hole in the Milky Way, it's actually really
Oh,
surprising
I was gonna say I've never heard of K10 before, but I'm also not an astronomer. You know, I just watch these videos.
Massive amount of gas in the center of the galaxy, and just by the fact that there are billions of different stars out there producing all sorts of emissions. But intriguingly, back in 1974, a couple of young astronomers, Bruce Ballack and Robert Brown, who you see right here, although obviously they don't actually look young here anymore, because this picture was taken 30 years later, were essentially conducting some of their first investigations in radio astronomy of various regions in the constellation of Sagittarius. They were actually looking at a star-forming region, Sagittarius B, but completely by accident and because they were curious, decided to also point their telescope at Sagittarius A. And to their surprise, they discovered an
No, we're in
enormously
queue.
bright
Oh
radio
shit.
object. So bright and so unusual that
I didn't hear it announce. Oh, what the heck? We missed it. Did it announce and I just missed it? Okay. Where do you set it to? Can you not? I swear there was. Maybe not.
that they basically just put an asterisk next to its name, and so it became known as Sagittarius A star.
Hide subtitles? Hide translations, hide subtitles.
It's been quite a while since we've talked about the
What?
central black
Already?
hole
What?
Sagittarius A star. And in the last few months or so, there's actually been a few major discoveries coming from the center of the galaxy, specifically focusing on that central black hole, discovering and confirming a few important features about the black hole, possibly helping us understand why it's the way it is and why it's so different from everything else. Because as you probably know based on observations from other black holes, Sagittarius A star is surprisingly quiet, surprisingly small, possibly even making Milky Way galaxy somewhat unique compared to everything else. And so, hello wonderful person, this is Anton. Let's talk about some of the recent discoveries about Sagittarius A star once again, briefly discuss its history and how all of this was discovered, and of course talk about why this is somewhat important. But I guess first let's start with the image released a couple of years ago. You might have already seen this. This was the image released by the Event Horizon Telescope after 5 years of analysis and after 5 years of observations, and to some extent, this shows us the region around the black hole. And it's that dark region in the middle that's essentially where the black hole is probably hiding. But when it comes to the central black hole in the Milky Way, it's actually really surprising that we even managed to find it, because it is very well hidden. Hidden by a massive amount of gas in the center of the galaxy, and just by the fact that there are billions of different stars out there producing all sorts of emissions. But intriguingly, back in 1974, a couple of young astronomers, Bruce Ballack and Robert Brown, who you see right here, although obviously they don't actually look young here anymore, because this picture was taken 30 years later, were essentially conducting some of their first investigations in radio astronomy of various regions in the constellation of Sagittarius. They were actually looking at a star-forming region, Sagittarius B, but completely by accident and because they were curious, decided to also point their telescope at Sagittarius A. And to their surprise, they discovered an enormously bright radio object. So bright and so unusual that they basically just put an asterisk next to its name, and so it became known as Sagittarius A star. In this case, this was technically a completely accidental discovery. But back then, because this was still the beginning of radio astronomy, and also because they were still very young and still basically just starting, they didn't really want to, I guess, ruffle the feathers. They did not want to make any extraordinary claims, even though they kind of had a hunch on what this was, and they didn't even want to publish anything about it, because they didn't really know where all of this goes. And as they mentioned in one of their interviews, the decision here was more political, not really scientific. And it wasn't until the 1990s and additional observations in the infrared and submillimeter wavelengths that more and more evidence started to come out that there is something exceptionally concentrated right in the middle. Moreover, that something had a lot of stars around it, and many of them exhibited unusual orbital pattern. You can actually see some of it right here. And so by 1990s, the researchers started to collectively measure the motion of these stars, trying to figure out what's actually happening. And by roughly 2008 or so, they had about 20 years of observations, being able to plot the orbits of these so-called S stars. You can learn more about these stars in some of the videos in the description. The most famous one, the one that you see in the middle, is S2. It orbits every 16 years and comes as close to the center as 120 astronomical units away, basically a distance of approximately 4 times as far as Neptune is from the Sun. And as more observations were conducted, more of these stars started to be discovered. And some of them were actually extreme. One of them, S4714, once again a video in the description describes it more, comes within 12.6 astronomical units and moves at approximately 8% of the speed of light. And all of these observations meant only one thing: something very massive, something very compact, and invisible right in the center, which eventually resulted in several major papers with very strong claims that this is the central supermassive black hole, the claim in the studies that eventually resulted in a Nobel Prize in 2020. And so naturally, once we knew that this is a supermassive black hole, someone had to take a picture of it. I mean, obviously to confirm that it's there, but also to see what we can see. But for that, the scientists needed something a little bit bigger than any previous telescope. They actually needed a telescope possibly the size of planet Earth. And that idea was kicking around for quite a few years and eventually became known as the Event Horizon Telescope, a large array of telescopes. It's been quite a while since we've talked about the central black hole Sagittarius A star, and in the last few months or so, there's actually been a few major discoveries.
Oh. Oh shit. That was a waste.
Discoveries coming from the center of the galaxy, specifically focusing on that central black hole, discovering and confirming a few important features about the black hole, possibly helping us understand why it's the way it is and why it's so different from everything else. Because as you probably know based on observations from other black holes, Sagittarius A star is surprisingly quiet, surprisingly small, possibly even making Milky Way galaxy somewhat unique compared to everything else. And so, hello wonderful person, this is Anton. Let's talk about some of the recent discoveries about Sagittarius A star once again, briefly discuss its history and how all of this was discovered, and of course talk about why this is somewhat important. But I guess first let's start with the image released a couple of years ago. You might have already seen this. This was the image released by the Event Horizon Telescope after 5 years of analysis and after 5 years of observations, and to some extent,
I know that
shows
I
us the
can't
region
connect this, but I
around
think
the
like
black
he's
hole.
not really paying
And it's
attention.
the
I might
dark region
actually
in the
be able
middle,
to.
that's essentially where the black hole is probably hiding. But when it comes to the central black hole in the Milky Way, it's actually really surprising that we even managed to find it, because it is very well hidden. Hidden by a massive amount of gas in the center of the galaxy, and just by the fact that there are billions of different stars out there producing all sorts of emissions. But intriguingly, back in 1974, a couple of young astronomers, Bruce Ballack and Robert Brown, who you see right here, although obviously they don't actually look young here anymore, because this picture was taken 30 years later, were essentially conducting some of their first investigations in radio astronomy of various regions in the constellation of Sagittarius. They were actually looking at a star-forming region, Sagittarius B, but completely by accident and because they were curious, decided to also point their telescope at Sagittarius A. And to their surprise, they discovered an enormously bright radio object. So bright and so unusual that they basically just put an asterisk next to its name, and so it became known as Sagittarius A star. In this case, this was technically a completely accidental discovery. But back then, because this was still the beginning of radio astronomy, and also because they
Boom,
were
it
still
worked.
very young and still basically just starting, they didn't really want to, I guess, ruffle the feathers. They did not want to make any extraordinary claims, even though they kind of had a hunch on what this was, and they didn't even want to publish anything about it, because they didn't really know where all of this goes. And as they mentioned in one of their interviews, the decision here was more political, not really scientific, and it wasn't until the 1990s and additional observations in the infrared and submillimeter wavelengths that more and more evidence started to come out that there is something exceptionally concentrated right in the middle. Moreover, that something had a lot of stars around it, and many of them exhibited unusual orbital pattern. You can actually see some of it right here. And so by 1990s, the researchers started to collectively measure the motion of these stars, trying to figure out what's actually happening. And by roughly 2008 or so, they had about 20 years of observations, being able to plot the orbits of these so-called S stars. You can learn more about these stars in some of the videos in the description. The most famous one, the one that you see in the middle, is S2. It orbits every 16 years and comes as close to the center as 120 astronomical units away, basically a distance of approximately 4 times as far as Neptune is from the Sun. And as more observations were conducted, more of these stars started to be discovered. And some of them were actually extreme. One of them, S4714, once again a video in the description describes it more, comes within 12.6 astronomical units and moves at approximately 8% of the speed of light. And all of these observations meant only one thing: something very massive, something very compact, and invisible right in the center, which eventually resulted in several major papers with very strong claims that this is the central supermassive black hole, the claim in the studies that eventually resulted in a Nobel Prize in 2020. And so naturally, once we knew that this is a supermassive black hole, someone had to take a picture of it. I mean, obviously to confirm that it's there, but also to see what we can see. But for that, the scientists needed something a little bit bigger than any previous telescope. They actually needed a telescope possibly the size of planet Earth. And that idea was kicking around for quite a few years and eventually became known as the Event Horizon Telescope. A large array of telescopes, consisting of the telescopes you see right here, all collecting data from the same point at the same time, which is then collected and analyzed in order to reconstruct a single image, which is pretty much exactly how this was created, and later on resulted in the image of Sagittarius A star as well. Although here obviously this was just the image of a lot of radio emissions coming from around the black hole and not the black hole itself. This was not in optical light, this was not in infrared, these were radio observations, just showing us that there is a lot of radioactivity in the central region around here, but obviously not telling us much more. But since that image, the researchers were actually kind of curious to find out what else we can see here by using other frequencies. For example, by using polarized light and by also using X-ray emissions coming from this region. And so here the researchers used the now retired SOFIA telescope, which was an airplane-based telescope, extremely good at observing polarized light, and also NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory, which I think NASA is going to be retiring soon as well. Yeah, that's not actually good for our scientific observations, but we'll talk more about this in some of the future videos. Subscribe! Anyway, one of the more recent images taken by the Event Horizon Telescope, not from our galaxy, was the image you see right here. This was the observations from a very famous and very active galaxy known as Perseus A, a galaxy 230 million light years away from us that basically produced evidence for an extremely ordered magnetic field, and a magnetic field that extended all the way through the black hole and even past it. More importantly, it presented evidence for what the researchers refer to as magnetically arrested disk. Or essentially here, the magnetic field was so extremely powerful that it technically had more effects than gravity. And so the combination of magnetic field lines combined with the spin of the black hole forced these magnetic lines to be so twisted, basically becoming a kind of a driving force responsible for launching extremely powerful jets. Although that's something that was already suspected previously, and here we just had more confirmation. But by observing this around this black hole, and by also
So here we're trying to establish
a lot
dominance
of
towards
orbital
center.
magnetic fields around M87 black hole as well, here the researchers wanted to find out if something similar exists around Sagittarius A star as well, especially because there were hints of this coming from the SOFIA telescope that was able to reveal huge magnetic fields surrounding the ring of gas and dust that seems to orbit Sagittarius A star. But even more intriguingly, there were hints that this magnetic field prevents all of this gas from falling into the black hole and from essentially activating it. So once again, a kind of a magnetic arrest, or prevention of activity by the magnetic field itself. And so, well, just a few days ago from when I'm making this video, there was finally a new and I guess the strongest confirmation so far. The confirmation of very strong magnetic fields
Do I
around
accept the
black hole,
undo?
twisted and organized into an extremely
I don't
powerful
want
magnetic
to.
field extremely close to the center of the black
I don't
hole.
ever ask
And
for
so this
undos.
iconic
I'm
image
never
that
going to
you
ask
see
for an
right
undo,
here
so I feel
has
like
now been redone
putting myself
in
at a
polarized
disadvantage by
light.
giving
It
undos.
sort of looks like this now.
You may decide
And
to
that
accept
looks
the undo
super cool.
request or
Here,
not.
this
You are not
essentially
obligated to do
represents
so.
very
Okay, I
powerful
will not.
magnetic lines that seem to surround the black hole and seem to control a lot of motion around it. Something that we always suspected, but something that has only now been officially proven, with the black hole itself being right there. This incredible video was recently released by the European Southern Observatory. And because this polarized light seems to be very similar to what we observed from other black holes, including M87, although maybe not as powerful as around M87, all of this basically implies that this seems to play a major role in controlling the flow of gas around black holes. And the magnetic field itself is most likely formed by all of this matter, specifically ionized matter, orbiting around the black hole. So it's a kind of a self-feeding and self-controlling mechanism. Although here some of the previous observations imply that not all of the magnetic field is produced this way. At least some of this field is produced by something entirely different. It's not entirely clear what yet, but it might have something to do with other properties of the black hole. For example, its spin. And that's actually something that comes from a slightly different study from just a month ago. In this case, this particular study focused on different frequencies. They tried to combine X-ray observations with radio wave observations. And they did this in order to establish the overall mass of the black hole again, in order to then calculate its spin, or essentially how fast the black hole is spinning. And turns out it is spinning really fast, approximately 60% of the maximum possible value, with that maximum value basically being the speed of light. And so because of this, it also obviously pulls the space-time around itself and forms what we refer to as the Kerr black hole. A black hole you can learn more about in one of the videos in the description, but essentially it's no longer really a sphere. It kind of resembles, I guess, some kind of an egg or a football and starts to possess different properties. And because it actually pulls the space-time around itself really fast, this affects everything around the black hole, all of the matter in its orbit, and thus produces a lot of additional effects, including potentially extra magnetic fields. But more importantly, spinning black holes generally produce a lot of energy if something does interact with them. So for example, if suddenly there's a star falling into this black hole, it's going to release a tremendous amount of energy, way more than a non-spinning black hole. But once again, strangely enough, here the magnetic fields seem to actually prevent this from happening. They seem to prevent the motion of the gas from approaching the black hole right now, which basically results in Sagittarius A star for some reason being extremely quiet, at least in the last few thousands of years. We know that based on previous observations from, for example, Fermi bubbles, it was very loud at some point, but compared to other galaxies, our galaxy seems to be very quiet. And so in essence, the combination of the spin and very powerful magnetic fields seem to basically control everything around central black holes. And in the case of Sagittarius A star, they seem to also create very quiet, very mild conditions, and are also most likely the reason why the black hole in the center of Milky Way galaxy is actually much smaller compared to other galaxies of similar size and similar mass. So for example, M87 black hole is over 1,000 times more massive than the one in the Milky Way. But because these powerful emissions also usually transform galaxies and can even stop star formation in general, in some sense maybe the Milky Way galaxy kind of got lucky. And maybe one of the reasons we have stars like our Sun in existence around the Milky Way is because of these very specific properties of the black hole in the center. And so if the black hole was just a little bit more active, or possibly had less spin or less magnetic fields, it could have been way more active and could have been producing a lot more galactic winds, thus stopping star formation and potentially transforming the Milky Way into something different. And so definitely some really important confirmations and really important
I think this game is
discoveries.
over.
But we're about to have more, because in April of 2024, the team behind the Event Horizon Telescope is going to start observing the black hole once again. And so in the next few months, we might hear about some additional discoveries, and some might even surprise us more. And so until then, thank you for watching, subscribe, share this with someone who loves learning about space and sciences, come back tomorrow to learn something else, support the channel on Patreon by joining the channel membership or by buying the Wonderful Person t-shirt you can find in the description. Stay wonderful, I'll see you tomorrow, and as always, bye bye.
We have two liberties. Two liberties. And we can capture at any time. Like now.
Black holes are one of the most mind-boggling aspects of space. For a start, they aren't actually objects. They are the result of the extreme warping of space-time. And because of this warping, some
Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and today we're going to discuss a discovery of a new record holder. The discovery of the largest genome in any organism out there. The genome that contains an enormous amount of base pairs, and so let's discuss this in a little bit more detail. But I guess first, let me show you a picture of what this organism is. And it's right here. Not very impressive, right? But before I explain to you what we're looking at, let's talk about biology first. And I guess here let's start with humans. Human body contains approximately 30 trillion cells on average. And each of those cells contains a nucleus inside of which we find DNA. And in terms of size and number of base pairs, for all of the humans the genome is pretty much the same. It contains about 3.1 billion base pairs. And though today we still don't actually know what most of this genetic material does to our body, we know that it's able to produce approximately 20,000 genes that then forms the proteins that make us who we are. But apart from our own cells, our body, inside and outside, also contains a lot of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and even archaea. And in terms of sheer numbers, it's actually more than 30 trillion. And each of them contains their own genome as well. And it actually varies dramatically in size and in complexity. For example, for a typical virus, especially for various bacteriophages, many of which live inside of us, their genome is only about 3,500 base pairs large. That's roughly around 800,000 times smaller than the human genome. Although some viral DNA can actually be large, up to 1,000 times bigger. And though most of these viruses don't live inside of us, some can be found depending on certain situations. Likewise, when it comes to bacteria, some bacteria have very small genome that's only about 120,000 base pairs large, or about 30,000 times smaller than human genome, with a typical bacterial genome being in millions of base pairs. One of the largest one is approximately 13 million, and that's only 200 times smaller than human genome. But it gets even more complex once we reach more advanced animals, and especially once we reach plants. So, for example, when it comes to animals, things get complicated really quick. Size here really doesn't matter. So even though genome of humans is 3.1 billion base pairs, and for a lot of birds it's 1 billion, we know that this little creature, Antarctic krill, one of the most successful and most abundant animal species on the planet, at least in terms of biomass, contains an enormous genome even compared to humans. Here it's about 48 billion base pairs, or about 16 times as large as what we have. But this amphibian has even more. This is known as the Neuse River water dog, usually found in North Carolina, and back in 2022 it was discovered that their genome is one of the largest out there, but it's mostly just a lot of repeats, or a lot of what's known as junk DNA. Here it's about 118 billion base pairs, or 40 times as large as human genome. But as you might have learned from one of the previous videos, the largest genome is right here. The unusual fish known as the lungfish. It contains 130 billion base pairs, so just a little bit larger than the amphibian I showed you, and at this point it makes things really confusing, because here the size really doesn't actually define complexity, and it's very difficult to explain why a certain genome is so large. And it actually shows us that the total DNA content seems to vary dramatically between different animals. But of all life on the planet, it's really plants that seem to have the most complexity and the most diversity when it comes to their genome. For example, here we have a plant known as Genuicea aurea, whose genome is about 60 million base pairs in total. That's basically the smallest for any plant. In comparison, Paris japonica, also known as Kinugasa japonica, was actually the previous record holder for the largest genome ever found. This was about 150 billion base pairs, or 2,500 times bigger than that previous plant. And even though the discovery of this genome was already really confusing, with a lot of biologists thinking that maybe we actually reached the limit of how big genomes can get, everyone became really surprised when they discovered this new record holder. This is actually found on only one island in New Caledonia in the Pacific Ocean, and it's a tiny fern known as Tmesipteris oblanceolata, containing 160 billion base pairs. so just a little bit bigger than all of the previous record holders, but also about 50 times larger than what humans have. And here once again, the size and the complexity basically doesn't really make sense. This particular plant is really small, it's only about 5 to 10 centimeters tall, but every cell inside of this plant contains an enormous nucleus with a large amount of genetic material. And here, if you were to basically somehow unwrap the DNA from this fern, turning it into one long string of molecules, it would actually be over 100 meters or 300 feet in length. But why it's so big and why it's so long, nobody currently knows. But the thing is, for plants, having this large genome can also be a bit of a disadvantage. Mostly because larger genome means larger cells. Because you need to somehow fit all of this material inside the nucleus. And that could also mean that the plant will grow much slower because a lot of individual
09 was still
structures
points?
have to be much larger on average. And even copying the DNA in this case would be a lot trickier just because of the size. It would obviously take much longer and would have to have a lot
Yeah,
of
but I
backup
wasn't gonna. I mean, there were
mechanisms in
neutrals. Is
order
that
to
what you're
prevent
talking
any
about?
potential errors. Which of course implies that some of these largest genomes, at least for plants, would
I
very
didn't
likely
think
be found
there
in
was going to
plants
be
that
any
are
digging
much
into this
slower
whole thing,
growing.
though. Gonna be
And
honest.
so very likely in plants that cannot actually be affected by things like weather or seasons. Mostly because it's assumed that a lot of these plants would not be able to adapt to various changes as quickly as some other plants. But obviously all of these right now are just assumptions. And mostly assumptions based on where we usually find these plants with enormous genomes compared to plants that have genomes that are much smaller. Because the reality is that we have no idea why the genome is so big and what most of this genetic material does inside the cells. And though previously this genetic material was referred to as junk DNA, today we actually understand that even junk DNA has certain function. We just don't always know what that function is. Although in this case, the mystery is really why and how do genomes become so big or so small,
I don't really
and
see
what
that
sort of
developing
evolutionary
into anything.
pressure causes them to increase or decrease their size. But in general, so far, the evidence does suggest that having a large genome might not be that beneficial for various types of organisms. As a matter of fact, in some cases, like in cases of so-called living fossils, it might even prevent effective evolution. You can learn more about this in one of the previous videos right there. But in other cases, the researchers have even been able to design specific cells by removing a lot of extra DNA and leaving
I did.
just the
I was just thinking about how
proteins.
I think I had asked if
cells
like
are
the
actually
margin
super
that you win
exciting
or lose
in
by
trying to
affects your
figure
rating
out
at all,
how
or if it's just
evolution
win
works
loss.
and
I
why
think someone
certain
said it's
genomes
just
are
win
so
loss.
ridiculously large.
So at that
Another
point, I
video
was
in the description below
right.
explains that as well with some really intriguing examples. But when it comes to this particular fern, well, right now this is really exciting.
I don't know. I can't.
Unusual, but nobody knows.
I guess I
why
didn't
this
really find
genome
that
is
fun
so
playing
large.
that out. I wanted to
It
get
is a
those big
record holder,
chunks
but
because
it's
I knew that
really
he wouldn't be
exciting.
paying attention to
Once
those,
we
even if
discover
I
something else,
spent
or
4
once
months wrapping
something else
around them.
beats this record, which by the way is possible because so far we actually only have genome for approximately 20,000 different species on the
you're
planet,
right.
and that's out of millions out there. We'll definitely come back and talk more about this in some of the future videos. Until then, thank you for watching, subscribe, share this with someone who loves learning about space and sciences, come back tomorrow to learn something else, support the channel on Patreon by joining channel membership. And this time, I find myself around an extremely beautiful, mysterious planet where we seem to have found ourselves extremely lucky to observe a solar eclipse. But anyway, I'm actually going to be away for a few days, nursing my voice, mostly because it's not really doing so well. I mean, I think I caught something, or maybe I'm just talking too much. Either one of those. Either way though, in this compilation, we're going to be exploring a lot of different mysteries, a lot of unexplained mysteries, and a lot of anomalies that nobody understands even today. They're actually going to be coming from various locations, including planet Earth, and only a few of them have a potential resolution. So enjoy, and I'll see you soon. Back in 1988, somewhere in the province of Quebec in Canada, there was an unusual pink-purple globe detected flying above the St. Lawrence River. An object whose nature and whose origins were unknown for many years, technically still unknown today. And although initially it was obviously assumed to be some kind of a UFO or potentially some other mysterious and hard to explain phenomenon, eventually it was followed by something else. It was followed by an earthquake, And this is where our story begins. Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and today I wanted to talk about this really interesting concept that's technically becoming an actual scientific concept simply because of the amount of evidence that seems to suggest it actually exists. And no, we're not talking about UFOs, mostly because I still think it's nothing to do with science. We're talking about something way more interesting in my opinion. We're talking about earthquake lights. These strange phenomena that seem to appear during very powerful earthquakes and that in theory could actually explain various UFO phenomena as well. And one of the main reasons why it was very difficult to believe the phenomenon existed was actually because of the poor quality of various pictures. For example, here's a picture from Romania from the 70s. This is a courtesy of Seismological Society of America. What exactly is this showing us? It's showing us something, but it's hard to actually distinguish anything here. On the other hand, this picture by Jim Conacher taken in Alaska in the 70s shows us something with slightly more detail, unusual quality of various pictures. For example, here's a picture from Romania from the 70s. This is a courtesy of Seismological Society of America. What exactly is this showing us? It's showing us something, but it's hard to actually distinguish anything here. On the other hand, this picture by Jim Conacher taken in Alaska in the 70s shows us something with slightly more detail, unusual yellow lights above a lake. But in this case, it's still kind of difficult to explain what exactly we're looking at, or even if this is a real phenomenon. But both of these phenomena were followed by a relatively powerful earthquake. But the reports of these lights appearing after earthquakes actually have a very long history of being reported in a lot of different literature. As a matter of fact, the first ever mentioning of an earthquake light was back in 869 in regards to a relatively powerful earthquake in Japan. But more and more reports start to come out in the 20th century and way more in the 21st, especially with the advent of CCTV and various smartphones that do have much more powerful cameras. And in every single case, it would involve some kind of a relatively powerful earthquake, at least 5.5 on the Richter scale. And the interesting thing is that usually these lights were classified as either one of the two. Either unusual globular formations usually flying above the area where the earthquake would occur eventually. This is something that happened back in 1975 in Hawaii. Or the lights generally resembling a typical aurora, but usually white or blue in color, with the lights themselves appearing and disappearing in just a few seconds, occasionally lasting for a minute or so. And so, for example, in 1930s, once again in Japan, there were lights that were visible from a distance of about 110 kilometers. But more recently, the devastating 2008 Sichuan earthquake produced lights that were visible from approximately 400 kilometers away. None of this was recorded on camera, or at least not reported by media, but it was reported by several witnesses. Similar phenomena were seen in 2003 earthquake in Mexico, in 2007 earthquake in Peru, 2009 earthquake in Italy, 2010 earthquake in Chile, and even the powerful eruption of Sakurajima volcano also resulted in the production of these lights. Or at least that's what was claimed by the eyewitness accounts. And up until about 10 years ago, most of the scientific community was still relatively skeptical about the existence of this phenomenon simply because it seemed a little bit unrealistic. How exactly would the light be produced because of the earthquake? Yet more and more reports started to come out, and with the advent of social media and more importantly smartphones, we started to get actual evidence, video evidence. Now at first it was just photos, once again showing us unusual lights. For example, this is from 2009 in Italy, with certain pictures and videos not really showing much, and certain other pictures looking a little bit too unreal, even though these were actual photos. But then we started to get actual footage from actual witnesses using smartphones. And this is absolutely incredible. This shows you what these earthquake lights were like during an earthquake in 2021 in Acapulco, Mexico, with these phenomena being captured from a lot of different angles by a lot of different people, and some of them just being completely unreal. It literally looks like the entire sky is exploding with these lights. Now what exactly is happening here? And more importantly, is this an actual real scientific phenomenon? And of course not everyone believed what they were seeing. Well, some of the explanations for these lights do make sense. These were maybe exploding transformers. As a matter of fact, at least one video from Acapulco that you see right here, and as always you can find in the description below, shows us what happened right there. This transformer exploded, producing the lights above. But this single explosion doesn't actually produce enough light to illuminate the skies just as we see behind it. So something else, more powerful, was causing a lot of these other flashes. For example, in this case right here, the actual light seems to be coming from above the skies, not really from below where the transformers would be located. Similarly, in this video right here, it becomes obvious that some of the lights also seem to be different color, so they do seem to have slightly different origin. And so following this earthquake last year in 2021, that's sort of when a lot of scientists suddenly realized that maybe this is something after all. And specifically because even very recently, both in China and in Japan, we had even more evidence for the existence of these unusual earthquake lights. These lights you're about to see, that's from the very recent earthquake in the same region of Sendai in Japan, with this video being taken on March 16, 2022. And as you can see from the power of this flash, it's unlikely to be a transformer. With this video being taken on March 16, 20 region of Sendai in Japan, you're about to see, that's from the very recent earthquake in the same region of Sendai in Japan, with this video being taken on March 16, 2022. And as you can see from the power of this flash, it's unlikely to be a transformer. Something way more powerful would have to produce the light we're observing. But that's where we enter the realm of unknown. At the moment, it's really unclear what produces this. But from all of the available evidence so far, some of the scientists established that it seems to be possibly two different phenomena. One of them, resembling a typical aurora, usually happens either during or slightly after a very powerful earthquake, at least 5 on the Richter scale. But then there is also something that seems to happen before the earthquakes, sometimes even a few weeks before the earthquake occurs. And this is something that's observed very close to the epicenter. And sometimes this resembles a ball of light, sometimes it resembles something slightly different, but it seems to resemble a typical object we would classify as a ball of lightning, or sometimes resembles a ball of light that hovers and disappears slightly after. So yeah, it sure sounds like a typical UFO, but a lot of these events seem to be pretty much natural. But aliens, they're not, because there are actual scientific explanations for what could be possibly happening here. It's just not entirely clear which explanation is the best. For example, in one of the explanations, it involves a chemical reaction. In this case, through the breaking of different bonds inside certain minerals, for example dolomite or rhyolite, it's possible to produce very high stress that can then release oxygen that actually becomes ionized. And once these ions escape from the cracks in the rocks, they can then start ionizing the atmosphere, forming plasma that emits light. Actually, the plasma ball you see right here is produced in this way, with certain experiments in the lab suggesting that this could actually explain some of these phenomena. So for example, by having certain locations with relatively vertical folds or cracks, this in theory can produce a lot of ionized oxygen, thus producing a lot of light. But that's of course just one of the explanations. The other explanation involves the principle known as piezoelectricity, the same principle usually used in a typical quartz clock. And here, through the mechanical motion on the quartz crystals and through sheer power of the earthquake, this can actually produce a lot of electricity, which once again could maybe produce some sort of ionization in the air. Another explanation involves the magnetic field of our planet, and specifically the interaction between these very highly electrically charged rocks and the magnetic field above the region, with these regions then triggering some kind of an aurora-like event. And the last explanation involves a phenomenon that we know exists but also do not understand. This is known as the triboluminescence. It's the unusual production of light when certain minerals, in this case once again crystal, are mechanically pulled apart, ripped, scratched, crushed or rubbed, and end up producing light that you see right here. And so trying to use this phenomenon that we barely understand to explain another phenomenon that we really don't understand is not really good science. But nevertheless, it is one of the possible explanations for how some of these lights that have been observed in various regions on the planet seem to be produced. But even though we don't understand what's happening here very well, we do understand where these events seem to occur. The vast majority, or about 97% of all of these lights, for the most part have been associated with these so-called subvertical faults. The regions which only cause about 5% of all of the earthquakes on the planet, and essentially represent a region where the tectonic plates are stretched and pulled apart, causing various vertical cracks. In contrast, the majority of earthquakes on the planet are usually caused by the subduction zones, where one plate is slipping below the other. And so knowing where these earthquake lights happen could one day help us figure out what's happening here. But more importantly, or more practically, it's already been suggested that detecting these lights can actually help us predict future powerful earthquakes. With several studies from Italy, for example, already suggesting that it has been done in the past, where people detecting lights and knowing about this phenomenon has actually provided shelter for several other people in their basement, which saved their life. In other words, by being able to somehow detect these lights across the planet, possibly using some kind of a satellite system, at least in theory, we could maybe predict earthquakes, powerful ones, or at least in certain
Just gonna
regions
play
of the
bot.
planet where these lights do appear. Which of course makes this a pretty interesting topic that we're going to be exploring again once more studies come out. Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and today we're going to be discussing a somewhat intriguing paper that suggests strange stars actually exist. And here it's actually kind of difficult for me to even help you visualize this. We're not really talking about stars that are just weird or strange. We're talking about stars or objects made out of what's known as strange matter, which by itself is made out of what's known as strange quarks. Essentially matter that does not exist here on planet Earth, or I guess technically it could exist for like a microsecond in some kind of a particle accelerator, but theoretically has always been suggested to be a possible type of matter that could exist inside, for example, neutron stars, or might have actually existed in the beginning of the universe, with hypothetical objects known as strange stars still in existence today. But in this case, we're going to be discussing this particular study that's actually a follow-up or an additional observation from another previous study, the one you can find in the description below, that seems to have confirmed these initial observations. Basically confirming that the observations from the supernova remnant located somewhere right here seem to indicate that there is an unusual object in the center whose current physical properties are extremely difficult to explain using modern physics, implying that this unusual object has a very high chance right now to actually be the first ever confirmation for an existence of very exotic objects. In this case, the objects were referred to as strange stars. But I guess let's start with baby steps. So here's how all of this kind of started. It basically all began with the discovery of a new supernova remnant. And as you might already know, most supernovae usually result in one of two things. Either some kind of a black hole remnant, what we usually refer to as a stellar mass black hole, or potentially a neutron star. And it's really the mass of that initial star that went supernova that determines what's going to be produced. More massive stars result in black holes, less massive stars result in neutron stars. Although actually extremely massive stars can sometimes leave nothing behind. But that's something that only happens to some of the most massive stars we've discovered so far, and as a matter of fact has never really been seen physically either. Nevertheless, remnants, including neutron stars and black holes from various supernovae, have been seen many times. But when looking at this particular supernova remnant that was discovered a few years back, the scientists using various telescopes and using multi-frequency observation discovered something unusual on the inside.
I'm so confused. The bot gave me a 9-piece handicap. Now it's passing, which is one stone in the corner.
The lightest neutron star ever discovered, or the least massive neutron star ever discovered. But in this case, way below even theoretical mass.
What kind of bot
and this
is
would have been
this?
totally
But
fine
how's this a
and not really
14K
problem
bot?
if this was a white dwarf, because white dwarfs typically have this mass of about 0.8 solar masses. But this would create a new problem. A supernova cannot possibly produce a white dwarf unless it's a type 1 supernova, where a white dwarf explodes but does not explode completely. But this was not the case. All of these emissions indicated a type 2 supernova, and the emissions from within, specifically the X-rays, indicated that this was not a white dwarf but very likely a neutron star after all. But the thing is, this wasn't really a problem until recent observations from the Gaia telescope. Because at first the scientists believed that this was a regular neutron star, but turns out that their distance calculations were incorrect. When Gaia telescope recalculated the exact distance to this object using some of the most advanced astrometry technique that we currently have, the distance was determined to be approximately 8,150 light years away from us, not 10,000 light years as previously assumed, which implied that the central object was not as massive as initially thought, and really implied that this was the lightest neutron star ever found. Previous measurements of its mass were actually much higher. But the thing is, the current models for the star collapse do not allow for such low mass neutron star. With so little mass, it really can only be some kind of a white dwarf, at least according to previous theories. As a matter of fact, the lightest neutron star that's accepted by everyone to date is a neutron star located in a pulsar binary. In this case, the lightest object is about 1.17 solar masses, and even here that lower mass is a bit of a problem. But at 77% of the solar mass, it really makes no sense whatsoever. So what exactly is this object then? And at the moment there seems to be only one potential explanation that kind of makes sense. It's really in regards to how matter changes when it finds itself in extreme conditions of high pressure and very high temperature. Now we're all familiar with ordinary matter, the stuff that we have on Earth. That's the stuff made out of atoms, sometimes also referred to as atomic matter. But as you go deeper you find nuclear matter. It's sort of like a liquid composed of neutrons and protons that by themselves are made out of even smaller stuff, the stuff we refer to as quarks. And everything around us that we're familiar with is made out of up quark and down quark. But there are obviously other quarks. Specifically, there are strange quark and charm quark, sometimes also referred to as the second generation quarks. And the combination of strange quarks with, for example, up and down quarks starts to produce other subatomic particles which have been used to explain a lot of other phenomena in various particle physics, with a lot of these calculations and explanations generally being in the domain of condensed matter physics or quantum chromodynamics. And so some of the theories in this field propose the existence of what's known as strange matter, basically matter that's composed of strange quarks remaining in a stable state and not dissolving into anything else, unlike in regular conditions on planet Earth. And in this case, a lot of these theories have actually proposed that this type of matter can definitely exist inside neutron stars in extremely dense, very hot conditions, where basically matter dissociates into quarks, creates what's known as quark matter, and some of this quark matter then starts to convert into specifically strange quark matter, eventually creating this relatively permanent matter that doesn't actually dissociate into anything else. Another way of seeing this is by imagining a neutron star as a kind of
I think we're probably going to call it a night just due to a lack of
the quarks in
people to
this
play.
neutron star confined into individual neutrons. But at some point, in just the right
I feel like I've been
conditions,
sitting around
this
for the last 30
confinement
minutes.
disappears and creates free
So I'll be
floating
back
quarks.
tomorrow.
This is what we refer to
Oh
as
wait,
a quark
I missed a
star.
message.
But as a lot of these up and down
1101.
quarks start to convert into strange quarks,
That bot is your rank,
potentially
so you
creating
gotta-
a more
I
stable
got the full
structure,
handicap.
they then turn into this hypothetical
Oh.
strange star. And what's really intriguing about
Well, what
this
I didn't
proposition
understand
is
was I
that
got the handicap,
suggests
and then
that
it
this
played a
particular
stone and it
object
just
might
passed.
actually be a permanent
And then I played 6 more
structure.
stones and it
This
kept
refers
passing.
to an idea known as strange
And
matter
then I passed and I was like,
hypothesis.
okay, you
And in
win.
this case, the
So what was the
hypothesis
point?
suggests that pretty much
That's the
everything
part that I was
around us,
confused
all
on. I
other
don't mind a
matter,
handicap,
is
it
not
just mean
permanent. It decays over time.
like you're gonna
and
give me a
becomes
handicap and then
something
not
else. Or basically,
even
a lot of
play?
matter
What?
is metastable. Given enough time, even
Yeah.
nuclei and protons and neutrons around us are going to turn into something else, eventually maybe even becoming
I don't
just
know what
energy
happened. Do the
itself.
bots have a
But not
have a
strange
do their
matter.
rank does their
Droplets
rank
of strange
fluctuate?
matter seem to be permanent and do not
Because
disappear. These droplets are sometimes referred to as
Cancel.
strangelets. And in the last few years, the scientists identified at least 8
I know that I
potential
beat like a
candidates to these
21
unknown
and then an
strange dwarf
18k.
stars. And the most exciting
And there's no
candidate was
18K
discussed just
here.
over a year ago with the video in the description. But the
I don't
recent
remember there
additional
being a
observations
28K.
of this unusual object once again confirmed that something
Seems like a
here
lot of
does
these move
not add
around.
up. It does not seem to be a regular neutron star, and so by double checking the mass, the radius, and the surface temperature, and comparing this with equations that involve some kind of a strange matter, these models seem to actually align with the observation.
right?
Task J1731-347 might be a strange star after all. Although in this case, it would still have some neutron matter on the surface, so it still possesses certain properties from a neutron star and still creates certain effects. But if this is the case, it's still not clear how exactly this object was
Yeah, I think
produced.
it's gonna be a night.
There is really no theory or no explanation for how a supernova can result in the production of this unusual object, and what processes led to the production of a strange star.
Let's find it
and
right.
not
I think
just a
were there
neutron
more
star.
Go
One
channels up?
proposition is that for some reason there might
Thought
have
there
been
might have
even
been.
more energy in the collapse that resulted in the removal of the mass, leaving a huge amount of quarks behind. But some other models even propose that maybe this is actually something that all neutron stars possess, but in this case the neutron star might have just lost its outer shell, leaving behind nothing but the quark star or the strange star. Whatever it is, still really exciting and will probably result in even more observations in the future.
Yeah, we're gonna check out Telegraph. He's 9 down. Let's go say hi. Alright. See you guys tomorrow.